This podcast features a lot of adult language.
All right.
So, are we about ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
Playing a guitar. Gross.
Whoa.
Yeah. I stopped like early just enough to see you guys freaking out. Getting all jiggy with
Well,
it.
I was playing a guitar.
Just because I really
I
like
was
the show.
air guitarring, and I guess you're the singer then.
Yeah, he took it too far.
Yeah, I'll be like the darkness.
Goddamn Brett Morrison over here.
Hey, as long as if we're in a spaceship getting attacked by a space squid, I'm okay with that in the video. You can touch your nipples on the bridge.
All right.
Okay.
And with that,
All right.
Peasant magic.
Hello. Welcome to Per Diem. We are here tonight with just the three of us. Tonight we have James Houlihan.
Hey, how's it going?
You can find him at Chainmail Ninja
Yep.
on Twitter. We also have over here Mr. John King.
hello.
Whoa!
Flexing today.
Front row
Bringing
seats to
it.
the gun show.
That's right.
You guys got treated.
Artillery.
We'll bring you to the gun show. Prester John Rex.
That's right.
Or at Prester John Rex.
They know how the Twitter.
Yeah. I'm the
They
only
got
one who
this.
doesn't. And hi, I'm Brett Rude. And you can find me at Ovault the Great on Twitter as well. And welcome to the next episode of Per Diem. Our buddy Mike is actually working diligently to get the next episode of Sea of Mists edited and ready for all of you out there. So he took the night off, and we're down with that. So we're going to try kind of doing this without our normal host, our Podmaster Mike, but
Yeah, we should be
we can handle
okay.
it.
We'll kind of forge our way through the dense underbrush that is podcasting.
hopefully
But,
we'll be able to keep it in one direction
Yeah.
a bit.
Well, we might the route might kind of squiggle and zig and zag, but we'll be all right.
We get lost.
But it's worth it because we've been on an editing tear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you've been watching, we've been doing usually 2 episodes a week, so we're really cranking them out. So
yeah, check them out.
it should be it's going to be awesome because we're cleaving through our backlog of 10 episodes.
Yeah, the thicket of
It is quite a
episodes we
thicket.
have recorded. Yeah, it's funny because we keep talking on Per Diem about, what just happened, just, tune in. And then we're like, we got to get that out.
Yeah, I'm like,
So-
wait, this isn't going to be actually released until for 2 months or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's better to not have that huge backlog so we can actually talk about the games as they're happening. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the...
And we're going to catch up, and at one point we're going to be pretty well caught up so that you can watch an episode pretty soon after we've done it, and then we can talk on Per Diem about it,
Yeah.
and everyone's going to be on the same page, so it's going to be pretty cool. So
Yeah, we're almost like the Netflix of podcasting.
the Netflix.
Whoa.
You're gonna. So if you guys are saving up, you can save up, and then you can binge right through.
Yeah, just binge
That's
through.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you
whole,
could
you'll have
actually.
you literally have a whole season to binge through.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you wait till the end of this month, you'll just be able to... Wow, that's a lot to binge.
Yeah.
Hey, but
I think
but you
we're
could do
better
it.
than the Netflix of podcasting because there's not much on Netflix I like to watch.
Fair enough.
I like to watch this. So.
okay.
I've watched it all. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Every time I see
You
something...
watched all of Netflix.
all of it that I'm interested in, apparently. Because
Fair
every
enough.
time I'm scrolling through and I see something cool, I'm like, oh, that one looks awesome. Oh, wait, that's in Watch It Again.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. I'm
I feel
this
like an
one
asshole.
This stars Deborah Gibson. I wonder if this is any good. Oh, wait, no, it's
was
not
that like
good.
Ahab 2000 or whatever it is? Where
don't
they
know.
they're on a submarine and then they're in a hallway walking down and then they turn left and just keep walking. I'm like,
What?
wait, this is a submarine. You can't just turn left.
It's a fat submarine.
Yeah, apparently. Well, it was like Captain Ahab's anti-whale submarine.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, naturally. I mean,
The most
just like
sturdy.
look.
All right, take it back. We are
So-
not the Netflix.
Anyways,
I think we're the Orc-Chop Express of podcasting.
But anyway, the goal
Set
is
the gold
so that
standard now.
eventually we're going to cleave through this backlog of episodes. So not only are you getting a deluge of episodes weekly, once we're caught up, you'll be able to, watch an episode or watch per DM, and we'll be referencing things from a recent episode rather than being like, oh, this is so funny. We wish we could tell you about it, but we can't because you won't see it for like 2 months. So, the idea is just to get caught up, and then we can have fun doing more current stuff. And of course, we've got our big reveal in early August.
Oh, yeah.
So stay tuned for
That's
that. It's
pretty
going to
rad.
be super awesome. I'm pretty pumped for that.
So tonight's episode, we're mostly going to be focusing on one subject after we do our excited abouts. And that's actually kind of nice about having a little time between these per diems is that I've got like a bucket of excited abouts I can pull from. So I'm ready to rock on that.
It's a grab bag.
Yeah. So tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about world building and what makes a compelling setting. So it's really something, we were talking about, you could spend 3-4 episodes talking about. It's a huge subject to tackle. So we'll see kind of where we go with it, and if there's more to talk about or more to touch on, maybe we'll touch on it on another episode.
Yeah, I think it's probably the big thing is to be upfront that this isn't going to be like a step-by-step,
Oh, yeah.
let's build a world and just go down through. We're just going to be pretty much just discussing it, hitting the main beats of what we think is important and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But excited abouts.
Excited about
Why don't you start?
Me? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I stole the...
Stole the hosting.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Baton stolen.
I don't
Well-
want it for very long.
One of my excited about, so one I'm going to focus on tonight, is, and it's a shame that Mike isn't here tonight, actually, because it's about him. Our friend Mike,
Aw.
he grows up so fast.
Bless his heart.
He ran a game the other night.
Oh.
He actually ran
Wait.
me and Tiffany and Patrick on a
Oh,
game.
wow. Please tell me you recorded it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he recorded it. So we'll
Outstanding.
get to
I wanna
listen
hear
to
this.
it. Admittedly, he was really shy. He was nervous. He
Aw.
was really nervous. I thought I did great though. Yeah.
Well, look, it's your first time
Yeah.
DMing. You're gonna be nervous.
Yeah.
It's because you don't think that, like, when you just show up and play, it's kind of one thing where you're like, oh yeah, this is fun. I'm having a good time. It's no big deal. But then when you go to DM, it's
You're behind the screen. And
More-
everyone's staring at you.
well, even as a player, when you come up with this background, and especially if you're going to do a voice or something, it's similar to any other artistic endeavor where if you're going to draw something and put it out there, you're kind of putting a bit of your own, like, it's created from your mind, right? So there's that, you're putting yourself out there, and there's that vulnerability to that. And I think DMing it's just that more.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
You're like, okay, we're gonna, you're starting the story at
Yeah.
least. So yeah, it's definitely
it was
if you're not
fun.
used to it, it's super weird.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
It's
yeah, I
not a
remember-
normal feeling.
I think the first game I DM'd, I just did like a dungeon crawl. And I remember you and Matt both afterwards were like, oh, that was just like a really fun dungeon crawl. I was like, really? You guys liked it?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, there wasn't much to it. But Mike actually got, on the last per diem, he was showing off that he got Out of the Abyss and he started running that.
Yeah, it's the
And,
Underdark Adventures.
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was actually really cool. We had a lot of fun, had a lot of funny misadventures. I played,
I can only imagine.
I played a lawful evil character. First time I played an evil character in a game, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, a character with an evil alignment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So, but yeah, I played a drow warlock. Or no. Sorry, he's
Guys and warlocks.
a death priest. Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. So, but I think I'm gonna multi-class with warlock.
I do want to do an evil campaign, by the way.
Oh well, then I will bring Phil Rain, my drow.
Wow.
He was pretty cool. I even I got these from Wasteland Weekend. Someone gifted the collar and shackles. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, spoiler: the very beginning of that campaign, you start off in a prison, and he. So I came out. I had put them on, and I was like,
Wait, that's in the module?
Well,
Yeah, put on chains around
no,
your neck.
No, but that you start in prison.
Yeah. It's basically
awesome.
get captured and get thrown in prison, and
So, like, let's go with something foolproof.
I was
Time
like-
tested.
and so I kind of worked with him. I was like, hey, I was like, that might be kind of fun to play a drow since we're underground and doing all that. And I was like, and you can use my character if you need some exposition or if you need me to help guide the group a little bit.
Like info about the Underdark.
And I'll play nice, like if you throw me hints, I'll go with it and all that. But yeah, and I came, their eyes were wide all, what the? Well, and I was like, let me explain. This is from Wasteland Weekend.
These aren't from
because
my
you
home.
have actual like manacles and a shackles on.
That could be unsettling. It's all cling, cling, cling. And I kept them on until we found the key to take them off. And actually, when I took them off, my voice changed because the thing was actually kind of.
I can't really talk like that.
I'm a drow. When you're like, I'm a drow.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was just your special roleplay voice.
Yeah. I think I did. I didn't do that much of a voice with him, but it was pretty neat. He had there were a bunch of other prisoners in there. He had no care in the world whether they lived or died. In fact, the other players. I was like, oh, well, you have something I could use, so okay, I'll help you get out, and you have something I could use. I made up excuses to help them, but all the other ones, like the ones that the other players liked and stuff, I'm like, I don't care.
Were they NPCs?
Yeah, little NPCs, and he sent one to his death. It was great.
The freedom of being evil it can be fun.
Yeah, but I made sure he was lawful evil. His word was bond. Like he what he said, he kept his word to, so that they could at least predict how he was going to act.
Yeah, at least you know where you stand.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
So Mike, when you watch this, good job. Yeah, well done, and look forward to playing again.
Cool. Just for the record, if we do an evil campaign, someone else has to play a necromancer, and I want to play an oathbreaker, and together we'll be the ultimate dynamic duo of Doom. Although I guess
if you're gonna run an evil campaign,
no, like play.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to run it. No.
Yeah, I'll
that sounds like a goddamn nightmare. You guys will be like burning down the fucking cities and shit. I don't want no part of that,
right.
other than the burning of the cities.
Well, that's perfect because Phil Rain is a necromancer. So
well, see, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
We're already gonna destroy your game. We destroyed it before.
Can we start at a moderate level, like 5th or 6th or something like that?
No, you can start at fucking first.
God damn it!
Work your way up.
You can't go
Zero.
You can't go
How
evil
you
at
became
first.
evil.
Wait, but that means I have to start as a paladin.
No, you got to be like a little Damien child.
No,
Oh, the young,
oh my god, he's like the 18-year-old anti-paladin. When
Pushing
does that happen?
stained glass off of people.
Well, because an oathbreaker has to start as a paladin. That's how
but
it
you'd be a
happens.
disgruntled paladin.
So, like, I'm just a paladin hanging out with these evil assholes, and they eventually won me over.
No, you're all like kind of jerky kids, and then something happens, and then you all turn evil. That's how it always happens.
That whatever
I
happened
could
just happened. Like
I guess I could just say his intent was always to
seconds
be an
before the game
evil.
started.
Well, no, you can.
I'm evil now.
You could just I guess he could just be a paladin that's dedicated to an evil god. And just use the rules for an oathbreaker, but he's really more of like a anti-paladin type dude.
And I'm using the rules for the death cleric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see?
So it's not an actual necromancer, but if you're summoning dead stuff, then that's, dude. Oh my god, oathbreakers are so brutal. You get at certain points, basically a certain level, you get an ability where every undead within like 15 feet of you gets plus your charisma to damage.
Oh, jeez. Oh, and then I'll be like,
Yeah.
Dominos.
Yeah, and you can also, like, I think if you encounter undead, you can just dominate them instead of turn them. You're like, oop, you're mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, this is that road we were talking about.
Yeah.
So we're so excited about this. Damn, I'm being Oathbreaker. It's gonna be so
The
cool.
greatest adventure.
The greatest evil adventure.
I guess I will go next.
All right, go for it.
Mine is completely non-D&D related.
Okay,
But
so on to James.
I'm
kidding.
Well, fuck you guys. I'll be downstairs.
This is bullshit.
I'll be downstairs waiting. To reframe the camera then.
That's fine.
Watching and waiting.
I've been waiting for this book for a while, and I finally got it. It's totally non-D&D related.
What is
but
it?
It is The Art of Brian
Oh, look at
Bourne.
that.
Whoa.
So,
Dang.
as you notice, there's Judge Dredd.
Oh, I approve.
Okay. The Invisibles. His version of the Joker, which is from The Killing Joke, is probably like my version of the Joker. So whenever anyone says,
Your
what do you do?
definitive version,
That's my definitive version. I've been wanting his art book for a while. I won something, but check that out.
First page.
Oh shit!
Oh, there you go.
Got some Judge Dredd action.
Gaze into the fist of dread.
Yeah, so I was really happy that it came. It's a really awesome book. It's got a lot of 2000 AD stuff. A lot of cool
Nice.
things.
That's awesome.
He's pretty much the artist. That's what a lot of comic book artists refer to him as.
Did he do any of that Slain comic? The one with the dude with the kilt and the sword and all that?
I don't think so. But he did Camelot 3000, if that matters.
We'll see. You can. There it is. D&D.
Camelot 3000.
Sounds D&D-ish.
Yeah, it took place in the future, but that's a different thing.
Whatever.
It's fine.
It can be. There are D&D settings that are in the future.
Yeah, but that was it. And also, I didn't want to steal somebody else's excited about. So there you go. That's my excited about.
There you go. Sweet. Well, what I'm excited about was actually the character that I came up with for John's game that he ran because
What? I ran a game?
did. So since we're doing our editing extravaganza where we're trying to catch up on our backlog, part of the problem is, you're producing content faster than you can edit it. So we're like, all right, let's put our regular campaign on hold and we'll just play some games to, entertain ourselves on the odd weekend or whatever. And so John put together his game and I'm pretty sure we're going to play it again just because everyone had so much fun.
Please, I really
it sounds
want
like everyone wants to. So
Not a blast.
I'm excited for that. And but the character I came up with, which I was pretty stoked about, because originally I started off with the concept as a Genasi,
Genasi.
but eventually it turned into a Duergar, and so we've apparently been mispronouncing that our whole lives. We always just said Duergar or Durgar, but it's Duergar.
Duergar?
I don't know. Whatever. Anyways,
I don't know how you get that
Yeah.
out of that, but whatever.
I think
miss-
Genasi.
Yeah, there's so much pronunciation with all these fake words. It's like, I'm sorry, I mispronounced the mythical.
I'm going to put out there, I pronounce it Genasi.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
With
makes
a soft
sense.
G. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Because it comes from genie. But anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
Knowing that,
I just know a lot of people say Genasi, and I think, personally, that sounds like some Italian food.
Yeah, like a giant steaming plate
Yeah.
of
Yeah, I
Genasi.
want some pesto on my Genasi.
hey, give me Genasi.
Hey,
Anyways, we're straying off topic
Yeah.
again.
that's what we do.
yeah,
Mike,
so-
what do we do?
But so yeah, the idea was that this guy was this outcast because he was a Genasi. He was going to be a metal, iron skinned dude. But when he was a Duergar, basically he's half Duergar, half mountain dwarf. But because of that, he was shunned and kind of put into the back corner of the smithy, and he's back in the forge just working. And so he becomes super good and talented at it. And then so he's this kind of Hephaestus type character. But since he's got a charisma of 4,
Yeah.
he's and an intelligence of 6, so
my.
he's like this incredibly talented smith, and he's a very physically powerful guy. But he's just got no subtlety, and he can't play the politicking game, so he's constantly outmaneuvered by his trade rivals, and eventually just loses it and just murders one of them. And while nobody can prove it, they know he was behind it, so they basically say, okay, you're now on the trading caravans to the Underdark, enjoy that shit. And then he gets separated from his group and lost, and then he goes feral for a few years, and that's how he's a barbarian. But I just like, it's a kind of character I've always really like. If I was going to make a dwarf, this is the one I would make, where he's got the cool like ashen skin, and he's got this bright red beard from being half mountain dwarf, and yeah, and he ended up being a lot of fun to play because it's been a long time since I played like the dumb fighter.
Yeah. That was what I did too.
Yeah,
I was like,
So-
oh
so
wow.
fun.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, these two were both really dumb, but hilarious at the same time.
Can I talk about my character too? Well,
Oh yeah, no, go for it.
because I think we played really well off each other.
Yeah.
I played an 8-foot tall Goliath named Siege, and Siege, his deal was that he was raised in a fort by humans, and they didn't think much of him. They just made him do menial work and this and that. But a bunch of the soldiers would just take him out back and beat the crap out of him, knowing that he could take it because he's so big. And they would kind of train.
Dicks.
He'd have no weapons, and they'd just be beating him, and it just became tougher and tougher until one day he just started breaking their arms or throwing them through walls, and they went, this guy's got potential. Anyway, instead of making him a barbarian, which it's almost difficult not to do a Goliath barbarian. I mean, they are like engineered to be barbarians. I decided to do a fighter. Like, he actually had some training. He was in this regiment of soldiers, and so in his back history, he would wear armor and a huge shield, and he would protect guys as they went up to go sap the gates or whatever, and then he would take a hammer and just smash stuff down. So he's used to being in full armor. He's since lost it because I'm level 1, and became...
Chainmail, right?
Yeah, I got chained, but I want to work up to full plate. But he fell into a group of thieves
He wants
and
full
rogues.
plate.
Yes.
He'll be on a
Actually, I gotta. That brings up a point of contention I have with 5th edition in general. I'm starting to grow my list of complaints as we play more, and one thing is armor. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like the armor wearing classes get hosed. Like, just because I rolled good stats, my barbarian that I just made, Brecker, he's AC, what, like 19 or
19,
something?
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
no armor.
Yeah.
Like, naked. I just run around.
Sieges is 19 with a shield.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And,
It's
I took the defense thing, which gives him +1 AC when he's wearing armor.
it's the same thing I was running into when I'm playing Svanya. I'm like, okay, she's going to be this like heavy armor in the middle of the shit cleric with a really good defense. And then like there's these naked dudes running around with better armor class than me. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then, you know, you look at the pricing for full plate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
1,000
have
gold.
fun with that shit.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like... I mean, I understand that to a certain extent they balance the game to work with the point buy system. So looking at that, like, you couldn't make Brecker with with point buy. That's the name of my Duergar character. You just couldn't make that character starting off anyways. So I guess that's what I'd chalk it up to, but it's frustrating. It's like, okay, so you've got this way for some classes to get a really high AC up front, or with no investment, right? Like, that's the gold piece maintenance. Like, some classes require equipment that other classes don't, and it seems a little bit like that wasn't taken into account in the progression. Maybe it's just assumed that the DM's going to balance for that on the fly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm just
Not doing it.
coming at it from a video game background. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, were this like an MMO, you would have to balance for that in the other classes somehow. Like, okay, Barbarian doesn't have to buy armor, but whatever, he doesn't value money, so he, spends a certain percentage of his income on bullshit and like drinking.
Yeah.
Or like a cleric has to pay tithes and stuff like, stuff like that where... I mean, you wouldn't want to do something, just pure punitive, but those are just examples. But something to counteract that so that it's not just, oh yeah, you have an armor class or an armor wearing character, cool, you get to spend 1,000 before you want to be a badass.
It's like 5 levels till you actually get to use that.
Well, I'm pretty free with my gold,
Yeah.
so you guys should be there in no time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, I had a blast in that game just because... I don't know, it was a character that I slipped pretty easily into, I guess. But like, I had a lot of fun, and it was cool to also, since I don't know that I even settled on an alignment. I said chaotic neutral up front just because I didn't want to go evil, but kind of played him a little bit closer to like a neutral evil actually. But it's either chaotic neutral or neutral evil.
I'm letting it kind of suss out. The alignment is almost. It's not really important for this one.
Yeah.
As long as you guys decide to stay on the main trail.
Yeah.
If you decide to go elsewhere, then that'll be a different story.
Well, I mean, I chose up front. I was like, okay, Brecker has seen how people of influence and wealth get their way in society. So he's not super sharp, but he's decided the path to him being, his path has to be bought. He's got to attain this wealth so he can go back and be like, fuck you, I've got fuck you money. Roll up in his Ferrari, flipping people off. And so that's basically his plan.
Pegasus, bitch.
Yeah, so he's just all about the
10
money.
levels, let's go!
It's true, though. I mean, it's basically he's about money at this point.
Yeah.
So that's what his overriding goal is, just to get rich.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem, he doesn't care that, Matt's character lit the town on fire as a distraction, which is awesome.
The amphils no more.
And then Siege,
The fall harvest, it's gone.
we formed a group Tiffany, Patrick, Mike, and I, just in creating our characters, we formed a gang called the Fire Irons, because we mentioned having fire and irons so many times. So we even drew with Sharpie like little tattoos on our shoulders, and but like we didn't want to be super like just evil dudes. So we came up with this idea that there's this orphanage that we steal money from other places, and that we don't steal from the orphanage. We steal money from known bad.
That's my
people,
That's my character.
and then give it to this orphanage. So it's funny because there'll be a lot of times where Tiffany's character Cricket, who's like this little gnomish rogue who's got this bad attitude and
that was
got
awesome.
a Jersey
cracking
accent.
me up the whole time.
Yeah,
That was cracking me up the whole time.
What's that?
That was cracking me up the whole time because when we were doing the whole thing where a certain person, a guest star, appears from Per Diem itself.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah.
That was so good.
That was hilarious.
Fucking, can I say it? It was Waterdeep Joe
What did you do?
from one of our early commercials.
Yeah.
Was like our handler, which was so fucking cool. But also, like, I really liked our party because it was your guys' trio of that was like a street gang, and then my character, my friend Dan's character, and my brother Matt's character. So I was this basically like underdark barbarian dude that got found by Dan's character, who's this human explorer type kind of nerd researcher guy who got demonically possessed / empowered. So he's like a warlock. And then my brother's character, who was this drow. So we were kind of this underdark expedition, and we came to the surface. So we're kind of an evil persuasion, and then you guys are complete lawbreakers and miscreants. So it was
along
this,
perfectly.
it was this group where we're just like, I guess we could set the town on fire as a distraction, and we're kind of sussing it over, and then just the fire starts. And oh shit!
It happened.
Time to go.
Well,
Say that's a nice cart.
Yeah,
Take it.
yeah. Oh, it was so nice, but it was very liberating to be able to play a miscreant character like that and not be bound by good and evil. It was fun.
When you guys posted, you're like, I think John should run a game, and I had to kind of whip one up. I was just like, I want them to be like the A team.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
we did.
that's actually exactly right.
And that's pretty much what happened. And that's why I was like, it's like A Team and Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
I wanted
though.
you to have the handler.
But it's also like the Dirty Dozen almost, because it's like
And almost a dozen people at the table.
I
So
know,
it's
right?
true. It was a huge game. But on top of that, like, you could come to us if you need help.
Yeah.
But we'll probably burn your town.
Yeah, your town
charge them.
and or like multiple towns might
You
get
might
burned
lose
down.
a cart.
If you can find us and you have the money.
And exactly. It's not going to come free unless there's something in it we can steal.
Yeah.
But
Some
no,
innocents might die.
no, I had a fun time running it. That was
That was
great.
a blast.
I'm glad
Yeah,
you guys
I had a
had
blast.
fun. Thank you all if you guys who played in it, watch it. Thank you for participating.
Oh yeah,
Time.
I can't wait till level 3. When I get that, I get a growth.
Yeah.
So my dude can.
You want some shampoo for that?
No. Dwergar can.
You get a
They
growth?
cast growth on themselves.
Oh, God.
Or enlarge.
Oh.
Enlarge.
I think it's enlarged.
Yeah.
Just keep yourself a growth.
No, he can. He's 5
Larry
feet tall.
and Barry. You're like, all right.
No, he's 5 feet tall, so he can double his
I know.
size.
So it'll be bigger than Siege. But we'll have to arm wrestle.
Yeah, for a minute.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll arm
I
wrestle
don't
for 2
think-
minutes.
you should not do strength feats against a barbarian.
Yeah.
Although my strength isn't that high, it's only like 16.
Well,
So maybe I should. Even though you get advantage.
I do.
Well, anyway.
Well,
We'll cross that bridge and then burn
No,
it
we
when we
won't.
get
That's
there.
a dumb bridge.
maybe we'll if it's been recorded and actually saved, maybe one day
Yeah,
we'll
I'm pretty
release
sure
it.
we'll.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Basically, everything we're recording at some point, we're going to
Yeah,
release.
Yeah,
I've
we're
done-
probably going to keep them as kind of like rainy day episodes. If we ever have a
of
break in production due to holidays or something, we might just throw that out there. Or if we just have extra editing time.
But my favorite part was everyone playing kind of in character. That was
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was on point with that.
Everyone
I
was on
Although I did
Sup-
change my stats a little.
That's fine.
Because I was like, oh, God.
It wasn't like
guy's
changed your
intelligence-
stats.
Well,
Yeah, he
he
went
went
saw
up until level
hacks.
5. Well,
No, he went and saw DM Gator.
Yeah, he comes back. He's like 6th level. We're like, what?
Well, like,
Yeah.
Like when you mentioned the triangle thing, and I was like, oh, I'll bet you they work in threes. And then I'm like, I mean, duh. So I switched it so my wisdom's a little higher. It makes more sense.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's-
supposed to be Cricket's right hand man. I shouldn't be like a total dumbass.
Yeah, I was considering going like either druid or cleric at some point, so my wisdom's like 13.
Yeah.
But I may swap that with. I don't know though. I don't think I will because I mean the way I played him was super low charisma, super low intelligence, and I
Yeah.
can't really swap any of those to a 14. That would not.
No, I mean, you definitely wouldn't eat a pile of shit if someone tried to hand it to you.
No,
You know,
he's got some streetwise. You
Make
know,
them eat it.
exactly. You're like, no, that's still poo. I'm not
like he can tell probably people when they're lying to him. And he doesn't know why or what they're concealing. He just is like, I don't like this dude.
Inspirations
So it works. But
yeah, we'll
we've
see.
kind of ruminated on this. Is
Yeah.
that, I don't even know.
ruminated. Yeah, sounds good.
Speaking of burning worlds to the ground,
Oh,
maybe we should
segue.
talk about building them first.
Shoot,
and how
world
we
building.
do that. Bit of world building.
Yeah, sounds good.
I know. So, just kind of on a whim, I was talking to Tiff about this game that she wants to run and stuff she's been doing, and it got the wheels turning in my head, and I started thinking of just new setting I was thinking of running at some point. I mean, it's nothing big, nothing official, just like, hey, it'll be a fun thing. And I thought I would do it in Savage Worlds.
Oh
'cause
shit!
we have Tiffany hasn't really played Savage Worlds before, so I thought it'd be a good intro to
Really?
that. Yeah, well, she joined us for one game of Noctovia,
Oh.
but it was kind
That's
of
probably not the best intro for somebody
Yeah.
to role playing. You're like,
Yeah.
welcome to role playing. Now your character's eating
Yeah.
some bugs and you're gonna die now. Enjoy that shit.
torn in half and dead already before you even sat down. But
Really? Did that happen?
no, I was making that up.
Pretty
I mean,
close.
I
Could,
could
though.
make it happen.
Could be gross.
And then I know, John, you were mentioning something about some kind of world you were thinking of, or is that right?
Yeah, well, so one I can't kind of talk about because of.
It sounds like we've each got like a side world we've been.
Oh, you got one too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
But continue.
Well, so I've been kind of in like the world building creative purpose at work.
Oh, yeah.
What I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
So I've been building that all out and trying to do things and been influenced. And then on the other hand, it's always kind of one of those things like, I have my superhero world that I always like to come back to and add more to it. And people keep saying, man, I'd like to play that again or do something. So I keep coming back and modifying it and kind of saying, okay, what have I learned over the last few years from the last time where I revisited it? But for me to create that was a real simple premise. It was like, I want superheroes, but how do I see superheroes? And then from there, that's how I was kind of able to layer it. So that's been the side thing I've really been thinking about is running a superhero game again.
Nice.
I want to play superheroes again. For
Yeah, of course.
Well,
I
cool.
enjoyed supervillains.
Oh, yes. Necessary Evil was a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I want to play that again, too.
Like,
Okay,
Actually, I never
we had
got
a
to
lot
play
of-
it. I just ran it. But
yeah, we had a
I'll
lot
play
of
it.
fun characters.
fine. I'll run 2 evil campaigns. I'll run one D&D.
Wait, we're not
evil
evil in D&D. Well, at least I might.
You're pretty
I might.
jerkish. Like
Well, jerkish that's a fine line.
you're like the
Jerkish
J
evil.
team.
the J
J
team, the jerk team.
Yeah.
No, the A just stands for asshole.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been focusing on is layering in backstory with like why. It's like you come up with a cool idea, so you might be like, yeah, man, this place has robots, or
Yeah.
and then you're like, well, why does it have robots? And then you got to kind of deconstruct like your cool idea to make it fit within the world.
Yeah, that's kind of the big. Honestly, that's the biggest tool I use in world building. Aside from setting your tone and all that stuff, when you're building things out, just you start with what do I want in this world as a setting, right? Like, if you're doing a superhero world, you decide, okay, this is how I feel superheroes should act. Why do they act that way? Boom. And then you just go through the like who, what, when, where, why
Yep.
Just keep
of
asking
each
why.
one. Yeah, and that once you get a few steps down that road, you can kind of shelf it and then move to other things. But that's really the biggest tool I've found, because once you start asking those questions, you'd be surprised like what cool shit you're going to come up with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what setting, because if you just start drawing a map or something and you're like, okay, here's the capital, why is the capital there? Well, it's in this bay, and then you just, maybe
Spreads from there.
it's in the mountains at a bay, so you've got like hippogriff knights that protect it, and you just start making up.
Tell me
shit
more.
from there. No, I'm done.
Well, so I've heard of kind of two major theories on world building or ideas on how to do it. That's the top-down way or the bottom-up kind of way. And what you're talking about is kind of
like
top-down, like starting with the whole world and fleshing that out, and then working on the details
way
and getting it down.
Yeah, it's a little. I do a little bit
Is that how you do
of
it?
both. Like I can use an example that was my kind of side project, which actually came to me while John was running his game.
You see, he was so bored with mine that he had to think of another one.
No,
He just kept interrupting.
Yeah.
but yeah, so I got this idea when John was talking about. I think it was Waterdeep, or were you talking about a specific city?
No, so the adventure took place in Waterdeep, and they have the wards.
Yeah.
And one of the wards was the undead city, which was like
Right.
this whole walled off city of like undead, like evil stuff that you just kind of most people don't go to avoid, and it's completely always guard.
Yeah, so then that gave me the idea because I've also been looking at. I noticed that there's like some. I don't know if it's Unearthed Arcana, but there was some articles about modern D&D doing like modern day setting, but Dungeons and Dragons, and I was thinking, oh, that'd be kind of cool. But John mentioning the Undead Ward gave me just the quick visual of like kind of like a Resident Evil style like cop car barricade, and they're shooting zombies, and it would look like to the casual observer like, oh, okay, yeah, it's just like a viral zombie movie. But then if the setting would be such that it's like, okay, cool, now you've got necromancers and like actual sentient beings like liches and stuff, and they're sending out flesh golems and all sorts of stuff, so that you have those like crazy zombie types, and you're mixing in that D&D, and then from there I was like, oh, that'd be so crazy if it was like you're really just taking like, okay, let's take modern day and then see how D&D those elements would change society. And for that setting, that's kind of where I started off. I was like, okay, what kind of cool shit would I imagine in this? Like, okay, you got like Amber Alerts, like, oh shit, there's a fucking dragon scene outside the city. Like, everybody watch out because he's snatching people. Like
A whole bunch of Amber Alerts.
yeah, just constantly. So,
Oh, man.
but then you say, okay, that's the kind of world I envision. Now you can kind of work backwards, and then I said, okay, well, what I would do is take it, because sometimes you want to take that okay, I've thought of some cool events in the past of this realm, so you can start there rather than going top down, where I'm like, okay, I would say let's start at the Middle Ages and assume Earth got to where it was in the Middle Ages the same as it otherwise would have, and then the Middle Ages were like D&D, so races are dispersed throughout the world, etc., etc. What would be different if you took that world and progressed it to modern day? So like certain things like the age of colonialism would be way different, because you'd have these like barbarian societies able to defend themselves via like magic and stuff. All the pantheons would be real, so the religious lay of the land would be a lot different. Like you'd have the Norse pantheon and the Greek and Roman pantheons, and the South American pantheons like Aztecs and stuff. So I was going to so that leads you to different things, right? So now you can say, okay, well, maybe if a lot of the colonial attempts were repulsed, you'd say the Aztecs still run South America, and so you can say, okay, that's a modern thing. They got like the Jaguar Knights or Jaguar Warriors and stuff like that. And then you just keep running with it like that, where you're like, okay, well, the U.S., if you took that same thing, maybe it's city-states instead of like states. So like each city's like, you've got L.A., but it's a big walled city, and everything outside of that is wilds, and you've got like nomadic tribes and stuff. So
The Baron of LA, so like the mayor.
yeah, exactly.
Run LA.
So yeah, and I think that's one approach you could take, but also I do like the idea of just saying like, what are the elements I want in this world? Mm-hmm. Okay, boom, I want giant walking like mech like Colossus golems if I'm making a just brand new from scratch fantasy world, but I want that to happen. Work your way backward. Okay, why did they do that as opposed to like other fantasy realms where they couldn't? Yeah. Maybe they've unlocked specific like golem creating magic that comes easier than it does in other realms for whatever reason. So
Could you add something in? I think it'd be great if druids had to carry a card that proves that all their spells are medicinal.
Legalized druish magic.
magic.
Yeah, well, that was actually one of the, like, I wanted to mix in a lot of the real world stuff because, like if you're going to do something contemporary, there should be some sort of political commentary in there. So I was going to have, like, mages are pretty much unchanged, but they all start with, like, student loans, so they have to, like, make their payments. And, like,
they're pushing certain spells and potions because
and
people
like,
that make those potions pay them a
well, like,
percentage.
how's the printing press affect scrolls?
Yeah.
Or, like, alchemy, can you mass produce potions? Like, can Coke go and buy the, like, patent, like, healing
Plus one
potions?
sword from a 3D printer.
So yeah, and I think answering those questions is what makes that kind of setting fun. That, like, I was just jotting down random notes, like, and also political things, like, so, I was thinking, okay, what's something, obviously, okay, so you've got the wars in the Middle East, and it's just it's difficult subject matter to tread because you don't want to be disrespectful, but at the same time, it's fantasy, so you're not, that's not the intent. But you're talking about, like, okay, so if all these gods are real, these religions are real, so you can have the wars in the Middle East, and it's just an actual holy war that's a conflict between two religions with real gods telling them what to do. And then you can throw in a lot of that flavor. It's set in the Middle East, so you can have mages summoning fucking air elementals and genies and shit. Just all. And what's nice about doing a modern setting too is, like, everything in D&D is at some point pulled from real world lore. So you've got, like, if you want to have, and Forgotten Realms is such a vast background that you can pull a lot of that stuff. So, like, if I'm going to write rules for the modern Aztec Jaguar warriors, you just go to 2nd edition Maztica and be like, oh, cool, Jaguar warriors. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I was just gonna say that reminds me of a lot of the one I was coming up with is kind of the flip coin of that.
Yeah.
Mind if I jump in?
No, go for it.
So I was kind of coining this idea as, for those of you who have played Shadowrun, Shadowrun always to me has felt like it's cyberpunk, and then they put D&D on top of it. It's like cyberpunk cake with D&D frosting. To me, at least.
Having not played it, that was my impression of it. Was like, to be fair, full disclosure, like, all I really ever saw of Shadowrun was the cover art, which I always thought was cool, but we were more Cyberpunk 2020
yeah,
guys.
we were definitely more cyberpunk.
So I was like, that's kind of lame. And plus, and they actually kind of went a little way in Cyberpunk and some of the Chromebooks to be like, oh yeah, and then there's some guys that get body mods to look like elves and orcs and shit, so you can do that if you want. So they kind of, like, just snuck that in there.
You can still do that. But that's kind of how I always felt that, at least all the games I played of it or stuff that I've read on it felt very cyberpunk with a lot of D&D. I haven't played a ton of Shadowrun, so put that out there as well. But my concept was kind of the flip side of that coin.
That's pretty much what it is.
I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, it seemed like cyberpunk with fantasy races and magic, but I'm sure there was tons of lore, but that seemed like what it didn't. Yeah, it didn't seem to have a lot of that, like, going back and rewriting the. I'm sure it's there, so we're probably going to get a lot of hate. Feel free.
I'm just using it to illustrate the difference between the setting that I was thinking of was the kind of more of a D&D type setting, D&D fantasy setting, but with cyberpunk things put into it. So really the concept, what I start with when I'm building a world or thinking up a setting, I think of an image. I'm big into film, I'm big into art, so I think of a picture. I think of a thing. I had seen a short film of this person who I guess their brain was put into a robot, and they ended up wandering out into the wilds. And I was like, wow, that's actually kind of neat. Like, he's not in his own body anymore. He's in a robot, and now he's out in the wild. But there's still wild stuff. It's not like the whole world is cities, but there's also robotics. So I started thinking that'd be kind of neat if, mechanically, the setting that I'm working on would function pretty much the same as D&D, or, like I was saying, we're going to run it at Savage Worlds, where the magic's still magic, but it's got a new coding. It's got a new look to it. So the idea is that the magic is magic. It's all tech based. It's all cybernetics and nanites and Wi-Fi signals and this and that. So if you cast a barrier, it's not going to be stone or water or something like that. It's going to be an energy barrier, or it's something made out of nanites or something like that. So what I did is I took that idea, that concept. And you could be a full construct too, and there would be constructs, ancient constructs that would look like skeletons that could be risen by techromancers and all these fun things. So I started with kind of what it would look like, kind of what it would feel like, and then kind of like what you did, only in a pure fantasy world, not based on Earth. Went back and I was like, why? Why is it like this? Like, I gotta have some kind of plausible...
what happened here?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing's super fantasy, you know, so it's, and I can throw in some, science type words and stuff, but ultimately, I mean, none of it really makes sense. But, and then just the whole concept is that magic was wiped out from the world and this tech came from it. And then the tech was suppressed by those that were in power, but they have, well, I'm not going to get too into it, but
Sure.
But now magic is starting to come back a little bit, so now there's some conflict between tech and magic, and anyway, it's just going to be a smorgasbord of have fun making whatever the F you want. And so you can make elves, dwarves,
it seems
orcs,
like almost like
constructs.
I imagine the vibe being a little bit like that anime Genesis Survivor Gaiarth, where that was a very Rifts vibe, but it was like post-apocalyptic, but also fantasy because there'd been that like regression of society and different setting, but similar, where you've got like these ancient war bots, and you can't go in the desert because there's these giant robotic dragon things that'll jack you, and it was cool. And then, of course, you had like this Thulsa Doom style bad guy who's going around trying to find all the best tech. And I mean, I could totally see that.
Yeah. So
it's a cool anime, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, it's like
well, now I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's worth watching. It's old school. It's like the late '90s, mid '90s.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I was like, I think I remember that one.
It's in that same generation as like the original Bubblegum Crisis and Golf Force and stuff like that. But it's cool, man. Like it's, I think 2 parts that are kind of like OAVs or something, but it was cool. The main character is kind of like, but the rest of the characters.
That's
cool.
typically the case.
Yeah.
But no, I was gonna say those were definitely like two thoughts. Like actually, just kind of seeing how you guys' thought processes of being like starts with an idea and then the genesis from that idea.
Yeah, it's like. Yeah. I think the important thing is to have your setting, like just, and I really like Brett's idea, was like to have a picture of your setting. And that's kind of actually, now that I think about it, how I did it similarly, where in my mind's eye, I'm like, okay, here's that, I've got that scene of the cops shooting at zombies, and there's like, in the back, there's like a necromancer or whatever, and then like a dragon swooping over like downtown LA, but it's got walls, and there's this untamed wild outside and stuff. So, if you're a very visual thinker, like use those. But I like the idea of starting with like, okay, what makes this setting like this setting, and then working back from that. And it can, as like I was talking about, like, and as rather than starting from the bottom or the top, I feel like you pick kind of points and then connect them. So like, I've got, okay, I want the like Amber Alert dragon thing. I like the City of the Dead, like, encroaching undead hordes. So they have this like barrier where it's this demilitarized zone sort of thing. So that'll connect in there. But then I also want to do the historical thing. So I've got like the Aztec guys, and that's connecting. And so, you start doing stuff like that, and before you know it, you're going to have a pretty fleshed out world where you start telling one of your players about it. And I might not have thought of something like, a different culture that I hadn't considered or something, but Brett might ask about like, whoa, can I have some like Mongolian dude or, whatever it is, and have like a crazy magical sniper rifle because they kept their, whatever rides around on a motorcycle or something. Stuff like that where I might not have considered it, but it fits right in. And that might be probably one of the biggest resources that goes untapped probably with world building and DMs is your players, right? Like,
ask your friends.
I mean, yeah, it happens in the game, so why wouldn't you rely on them as a resource? I mean, the players tell the story for the most part once you get the ball rolling, so no reason not to incorporate them in the world building process as well.
I try to take that same attitude of try to always say yes when a player comes up with something. Because I was talking about this the other day, and our friend Patrick was like, oh, I had this concept of these tech knights that were trying to suppress all the tech. And he said, well, could you have kind of the opposite coin, like these fully construct, like, he's a big Palladium Rifts guy, and he's talking about Cyber Knights, and he's like, can I make effectively a Cyber Knight? And I was like, yeah, why? I hadn't even thought about that. It's like, of course, this is going to be the opposite side of that coin, too. So, sure, and he's sort of talking about his ideas, and so I think relying on your friends to come up with ideas is... I think that's a great way. It feels very inclusive too, because if you feel like I came up with that idea, that was cool.
Well, I mean, everything for me stays as kind of it's like a playground, right? Like I set all these rules, and I do all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, here I'm going to tell my story now, and then wait to see what other people bring up, and people mention interesting things or doing whatever. It's kind of like even with the game I ran. Like Waterdeep, I have no idea. Waterdeep's just like this big town filled with a bunch of muckety-mucks. And I was like, good, all these people are playing weird shit, but it's Waterdeep.
Yeah,
so
it's very
everyone's
cosmopolitan.
Right, exactly. And then, Tiffany was throwing in kind of like that Brooklyn accent.
Yeah.
And I was like,
perfect.
And I was like, well, she's doing that. I was like, okay, well, that's Waterdeep. Then I'll do the same thing with, Waterdeep Joe. It just... but it was just take what she was doing, and then
so perfect.
And then she would riff off of what I'm saying. I'm riffing off what she was saying, and then there you go. That's the new standard.
It builds history.
Exactly, it builds history, and it just cemented it in my version of D&D or whatever that is. Everything's established, but now I've chunked that in.
Well, I liked that it was not like a modern city kind of vibe, but the fact that it was kind of that, but it made it a lot more relatable and like, okay, now this feels like a big city. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because when you try super hard to do the medieval town thing, it kind of sometimes just feels like the Renaissance Fair or something. And you're like, I'm not feeling like I'm in a giant city here. But when it's like Waterdeep Joe and her going at it and like, bartering or whatever, it's like, okay.
Molten Hammer.
Yeah. Molten Hammer.
Molten Hammer. I'm speaking common here. You don't speak common? Molten Hammer. Oh, come on, who are you guys? Yeah, that's what cracked me up a lot.
Nothing makes you think big city like New York accent.
Kind of, right?
I mean, quite frankly, it puts a stamp of this is a big city.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first time I heard that used was Chris Perkins.
Yeah.
That halfling in Acquisitions Incorporated. When he did that, I was like, that's crazy. He's using like a completely like only modern setting or only modern accent. Like that's a new-ish accent as far as historically. But it's just but it's like fantasy. So like you could people from Waterdeep could totally sound like they're from Boston or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it worked for me. And it's just kind of one of those things because when I did acting in high school poorly, I remember I had to do it was Three Penny Opera. Don't worry, this is just a danger. Three Penny Opera is a.
You don't have to explain this one.
Yeah, it's an opera, sort of, kind of, not really, but. But that's where Mac the Knife, the song Mac the Knife comes from. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I had to play a constable. And
that was that picture you posted.
Right, where I had to make mutton chops. So I had made my mutton chops.
There you go.
And for the longest time, I'd be like, Matt Keith is around the corner. And I was like, where is this voice coming from? Like, I feel like I have to do this. This world is bringing me in, right? Where it's just like, it's all proper and everyone's trying to talk. And we're just, I'm a California kid from San Francisco. I don't have an accent per se. I say hella. Exactly, hella. But hella. I got a hell of an
southern accent. That's all I can do.
But so, and I'm like, Matt Keith is over here. And I kept trying to do all these weird, stupid British accents. Well, no. So then I kind of, this is the prototype Waterdeep Joe is, and I was like, I had to ask, I asked my teacher, I was like, okay, for some strange reason, I keep wanting to do a British accent. I can't do one. It's not in the blood. It is probably in the blood somewhere, but it's not in the cards. I cannot do it. It's like, can I try something different? He's like, okay, John, what do you want to do? I said, okay.
It's going to be old.
No. Well, so I had gray. I had put gray in my temples, what I now naturally have. So, like, I was very...
That was prototype John.
Yeah. No. It was like this croaky voice. It was like, stop. Sir, Matt Keith is around the corner. And he was like, he just looked at me. He's like, all right, whatever.
He's like,
You'd be all, that's perfect. He's all,
Yeah, because it was kind of
that's
like,
not how I was expecting it to go.
you got the.
it worked. He's like, you came in and you made mutton chops, so I'll give you that. But the
You
whole
can do whatever voice you want.
and I was like, sir, sir. You know, I didn't sing that way, of course, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I couldn't do a British accent but the world, like, you know, the clothing and everything made me want to do that.
You can't just talk like you.
Exactly. I could be like,
what's up,
Matt
bro?
Keith, yo, motherfucking Matt Keith is here, and he's starting shit. He's stabbing people on the docks. You know, I couldn't do that, so I had to figure out how to kind of work within that world in my own way by doing the weird croaky voice.
Well, I was gonna say, I think this is another path.
Yeah,
that
we're not on world building right now.
No, but it
But it
relates.
Excellent story. Yes, it absolutely
I think.
is.
well, no, it's kind of like thinking about how a world brings you in, right? Like the genesis of something, kind of like, hey, you know, I want to do something, or any fruit of an idea. It's just kind of like, what needs to bring you there?
Well, that's the very minute detail of like, and it was with an existing world. We're using Waterdeep here, but again, that's, you know, we play games and we've gone to Waterdeep, but I've never really gotten like a big city vibe. And that was the first time I was like, okay, this feels like a real place now. And so, and it was all due to how you chose to, you know, or based off, you know, Tiff's accent, like how you went with it.
I just went with it.
So but considering those minute details and that could be part of your vision, right? Your mental picture. Maybe they are talking like that, and those details can really, you know, are what breathes life into that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, who exists? Does it take place on Earth? Is it not on Earth?
Yeah.
You know, is it an alternate Earth? Like you kind of mentioned with your idea, it's like, well, the Aztecs never left, so that was it. You know, I came up with a world where Bolivier, the guy who created Bolivia, unified South America. So instead of it being a bunch of different, it was just the United, you know, the Federation, something. I wish I could remember it. It was a little while ago. But then I was like, okay, well, in that case, what would happen in the United States? United States formed with Canada. So then it's the United, you know, states of, you know,
something.
exactly. No, it was United States of North Americas.
Oh, okay.
Right, and then that had like a maple leaf in with the United States coloring, that type of stuff. Because I was like, this is a world where people have formed and put their, you know, resources together and doing all this stuff. So it was just, but it just came from one of those things. Like I was talking to my coworker about, like, you know, South America, and he mentions like, oh, this dude's like seen as a god and yada yada this, and he tried to unify them, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then just that got me thinking about this whole crazy world, and it was just like one little spark, you know, like one little thing. And
and that's another thing is, don't be afraid to steal from existing settings, because like if there's something about a setting that you like, but you would tweak it if you did it, then do it. Like just take what was there, build on it. You know, like it reminds me a little bit of, I made a setting for our 20. It was, you know, this is kind of a different system setting, but it's still world building, where we were doing a 15mm sci-fi miniature wargaming campaign, and I wanted to have this kind of colonized space and all this stuff. So, but I wanted different factions all from Earth, but then I wanted the outside factions. So I was like, okay, it was the same thing as my other one, where I started with what I wanted, which is I want some planet out here that's just newly discovered, and I want mid-ish tech armies fighting there. It's, you know, still sci-fi, but whatever. And so you start with what you want and work backwards. So I was like, okay, well, I always liked that. There's a video game called Shattered Union, where it was basically a war game about a second American Civil War. So it's like, okay, I really liked that concept, because they did it they presented it in a very realistic manner. So I was like, okay, I'll take that, and then you build on that. So that's why we have all these different factions, and then you've got, you know, China and Russia and all that stuff. So I mean, but my point is, it's starting with what you want it to be like is, I think, the most important, at least to me. I'm sure there's so many different schools of thought on it, but to me, having, and it doesn't have to be a clear picture, and like you mentioned, it could just be a snapshot of one thing about that world that you feel like kind of gets you excited about it, right? So for me, it was like this desert planet with these kind of sci-fi, but not ray guns and stuff. Maybe there's lasers, but it would be very much like this rugged, real, gritty military, like even maybe still using regular conventional bullets. And then you think back, okay, why would that happen? Okay, maybe this is a rugged world, and when you're traveling across space, you want to keep it simple, stupid sort of a thing, where you might have mechs, but they look more like modern tanks because it's just, you could use newer tech, but it just gets kind of like in heavy gear.
It's like less maintenance out on the
rim. Exactly. So yeah, exactly.
Reliability over.
Yeah, sort of like Firefly or Heavy Gear had a similar premise where it was like, yeah, we can do crazy like railguns and lasers, but when you have them in the desert, they don't exactly function optimally. So you make with simple machinery and so whatever. You come up with your justifications, then you work backwards. Okay, well, I want this faction, but I want them to be kind of like, okay, so the U.S. is now 2 or 3 different factions, whatever it is, and I want, I saw some cool art of like a multi-legged spider walker that was like all Russian, and that's, Brett's got some miniatures like that, so I was like, okay, why do Russians do it this way? And and then that kind of, again, it's asking those like, this is what I want now, who, where, what, when, why, whatever. Now you've got, you start answering those questions, and now, I mean, at the end of it, we had a really cool history where I was able to type it up, and it was this. I was like, wow, this is actually a really, not that I was, should be surprised that I was able to come up with cool shit, but at the same time, it was like, this is a cool setting, and so I think as long as you start with that, what you feel like is a cool idea, and then you wanted to play the Russians, so I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do with the Russians? And we start answering those questions together, and now you've got a big stake in this world, and you're excited about it because you helped create it. And I mean, we're talking about what's making a compelling setting. Having a stake in a world is something that, as a DM, you should always be, or getting the players to have a stake, rather, is something you should always be after, because the more invested your players are in that world, the more pumped they are going to be to play. The more excited they're going to be while they're playing it. They'll take it more seriously, and that's where I feel like as a DM, things like giving the players that, like, with our campaign, it's the in, but and our friend Brent actually ran us on a campaign where it was actually like our 3rd campaign with the same characters, and we eventually became like these state officials of our own kingdom and stuff, where we've always shied away from that kind of stuff because we were always kind of looked very negatively on like Monty Hall type, games where it's like you just got whatever you wanted. Kind of for fear of just, it gets out of control and it's not fun anymore. But what I did learn from that is, if done right, those sorts of things can be a lot of fun, because we were, I think, 15th, 13th level or something at the time. We were pretty high. So we were pretty high, but not like epic, adventures. And I mean, you could even have people at 1st or 2nd level being involved in those kinds of, political schemes and machinations, because it's really just a backdrop to the story you're telling. Yeah. But
if that's what they want to do.
But yeah, if you're like the, okay, so my character was the paladin, and he's, god of war or whatever was his worship. So he was like minister of war, and so like he was in charge of the military. And now, if your character has this position and power, now you're interested, you have a stake, right? Like a real, like kind of an influence in this world. So now you actually care a little bit more about what goes on in your kingdom, as it were. Whereas if you're just like an adventurer and you're running around, like like with our characters in John's game, we're kind of a classic starting party, so we don't care about burning down the towns, and that of course that goes on and you change.
It's not there.
Well, no, but I mean, and that's what's great about gaming, though, right? Like, now, since we burn, and again, we, as the players, we're telling the story. So if John decides he doesn't want us to be burning down towns, he can decide, look, now he introduces a character like, oh, cool, now all you need to go is like get this, locket from old, Granny such and such. She lives in that town. And you go, oh. And so now you have to win over the town that you burned half of it down, or whatever it is. So, you can always loop those things in. But the idea is, and eventually we might get our own, whatever it is to give our characters a stake, like we actually care. But maybe, that's the different tone of the campaign. But my point is, as you go on, you can start introducing those things and not being afraid of letting your characters have a big amount of sway in that world. Can actually it can make your character or your player's connection to the game a little bit more deep.
Yeah. That actually
kind of rambled a little bit. But.
No, that's right. That kind of makes me think of a question I thought I'd throw out there for you guys.
Shit.
Oh, question.
I didn't know there was a test.
Oh man, I didn't take any notes.
So you study up. It's open books. That's okay.
Good.
So, and I'll start with my kind of brief answer on it as well. But the question I was going to ask was, how much prep and nitty-gritty detail do you put into the world before you unleash it upon your players? Like, do you figure out what capitals you have and the populations and the languages they speak and the cultures that are there? I personally, you kind of know this as me as a DM, I like going into things, quite frankly, unprepared. I like just kind of going in and improvising.
No.
That's weird.
I like having like a general concept of where the game is going, but knowing that the players are going to do whatever the hell they want, I'll just go with the flow. I'm like water.
Be water, my friend.
Be like water, my friends.
So when it comes to world building, Noctovia, I mean, I have a map and I know where my cities are, and I know, and I've named all the cities, and I have a general idea of the tone of each one of the cities, but that's about it. And over the years, as we've gone to the cities and I set a plot there, I made up some characters and we played out a thing, and that adventure built that city. So now, boom, stamped. That's now Noctovia canon, and I personally like letting the players, kind of like you were saying, really create the world as they're playing. You know, we'll go to this town. The downside is they'll be like, "Oh, what's over in that city?" And I'll look and I'm like, "I don't know. It's
a rock.
See, that's where
It's a rock merchant.
That's where you touch on something that's important when you're doing that, which is the biggest asset you have when you're creating a world in that or running a game in that fashion, which is most games to a certain extent. It's just the degree of which you're doing that is you don't let on, right?
Yeah.
Like you might be freaking out going like, I don't know what's in that city, but your players don't know that you don't know what's in that city, and that's your biggest weapon, right? So it's just a matter of steering them into kind of giving you what you need to do it, or just coming up with it on the fly, or just saying you don't know, you've never heard, you'd have to go and check it out. Stuff like that.
Roll a knowledge check.
Yeah.
And then they roll, and the whole time you're just thinking, okay, oh shit.
Exactly.
Oh, you got a 13? Okay, hold on, let me look that up. Okay, I don't know, like rock spiders or I don't know. oh, you've heard that people go there and they never come back. It's like mysterious.
It's very foggy.
My answer to that also would be like using this modern thing as an example. And it's a little harder when you're saying, if you're just sitting down and saying, I want to build a world today, this probably isn't the best approach. But with this modern thing, we've got other projects going on, so I've just kind of had it on the back burner, and I'm like, okay, I just open a OneNote, but this could be keep it notes anywhere.
This is by Microsoft.
Microsoft.
You have to get.
But yeah, I just open a new page and I just say, okay, here's my modern D&D, and I just do bullet points like, okay, Undead District, student loans, whatever.
Credit unions.
The important part.
But but just the things that you like, and just start with those, and then
Church's chicken.
Again, you start. But it's got to be a fantasy animal.
Oh, okay. Church's zebra.
Church's, what is it, like a giant chicken? Like a giant season?
Exactly.
A giant holy chicken? Church's chicken?
Dire chickens.
Dire chicken. Oh my god.
But yeah, but you know what I mean. You start with those bullet points, and then you just, that gives you a base, right? So then I start telling Brett about it. I'm like, okay, Brett, this is the setting. There's the Aztec dudes and blah, blah, blah. And then you are going to ask me questions that I will undoubtedly have not thought of. You might be like, okay, how do clerics work? And I'll be like, I don't know. Well, let's think. And what religion? And then maybe, since it's a real world thing, we can look up stuff about certain religions, and then you can get your creed and all that from that, or whatever. It might be, warlocks or a certain type of wizard. I mean, we talked about, the printing press and mass produced, potions and stuff like that. So those questions that your players are going to ask are going to force answers, and that is going to help flesh out your world. So I don't think you need to, and it's going to change from DM to DM. I know that there are some DMs where they've spent like 5 years and they've got the ultimate like backstory for everything with the setting.
Which can be cool, because then it really feels like you're in a world.
It can, but what if that setting sucks and you don't know it? Like, that's what I would, you know what I mean? Like, what if you sunk like 5 years into this thing that's just not that cool?
Yeah.
Like, I would want to know. Like, okay, so I've got my bullet points. I've said, okay, I like the idea of like the dragon flying over LA and like toasting things. So my campaign's going to start in LA, but it's got the walled city. So what's around it? And then I know that, the general geopolitical thing. Okay, I've got like Europe, which is like the old world, and it's still called that. And the new world's still called the new world because it's still pretty new because most of it's untamed. And then I've got like the Aztec dudes, and that's all South America. And then you can kind of start coming up with things, but that's the basic thing. And then someone will be like, well, what about like Scandinavia? And I'll be like, fuck, I don't know. Odin and Thor are real, so maybe they're still mariners, but you might have an idea for your character.
I will answer your question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Please, do tell.
So I've gone both ways. One where yes, that's right.
All right.
That's right. That's
Okay, well, let's hear both.
Okay, so for my superhero world, that one I must have spent about at least a year on. Like, thinking of, like, the geopolitical climate, how superheroes are viewed, power levels, like, you name it. It's like, here's the town.
Is this before anyone had even played it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So
it was like, literally, I was just, like, I'd be on the bus going, and everyone's like, what's that kid doing in the back? And I'm just all like, in my head, just like,
I'm world building, bitch. They're distracting me.
Foaming at the mouth.
Well, and I feel like that approach is almost like I'm writing a setting book as if I'm going to release it almost.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that because it was just one of those. Is like, I love superheroes. There's no doubt in it. So I was like, I want to make this my superhero world. Like everything I know about it. So, but I was like, I want to make it cool. Like I want there to be kind of.
It's got to be cool.
It's got to be cool. It's got to be like there's got to be like a Cobra Commander-esque character, like over in the Middle East type of thing where he actually unified.
Oh shit! He's a bad dude.
Like a bad dude, and then like the United States and them fought, and they have like suborbital fighters and stuff like that. I was going like,
Sounds cool. Can we play it?
Can we just mix yours together, actually?
but so I
is
Damn,
riffs,
elves
suppose.
make the best jets.
elves. It's like Pegasus Core, go.
Silverhawks. Like,
Silverhawks. Oh shit!
They would actually be hawks. Actually.
It would be Silver.
Actually, that
Hawks.
reminds me of something in my setting, but
Well, I was just saying that, I took the time and just kept thinking of all these things. But I was like, okay, there's the East Coast. This is where the game will take place. The West Coast does have cities, but it'd be like San Francisco, stuff like that. The name of the city was not very creative on my part. It's Megatropolis.
that sounds perfectly generic. I love it.
Well, that was kind of it. I was like, I want it to be everything that you need it to be. Really big, lots of different,
Superman has Metropolis.
yeah.
Like, it's literally just a synonym
It's like-
for city.
It's like
Like
Judge
Bad
Dredd
Castles.
meets Superman.
Yeah,
Kinda.
Mega City 1.
Megatropolis.
That
Yeah.
sounds perfect to me.
So, I did it all. And then did it with the Star Wars game, but I had Star Wars as the background, but I was like, I don't like the way Jedis are portrayed because Jedis are chumps.
Jedi, please.
Jedis are chumps. I know it just kills
Damn
them.
Philistines.
I have to keep doing it because I know it irks them.
I'm not even all about Star Wars anymore.
But, I built it there, and then after a while, I kind of started taking Brett's approach to it, where it's just kind of like, let this be a stream of consciousness almost, where, each game, I have my notes. These are the beats I want you to hit. We've talked about beats before. These are what I want you to hit. How you hit them, or if you hit them, is totally up to the player. But they are there for you. It's kind of...
Star Wars is a little bit of a break for us, though, I feel like, because we're also... I'm not tooting our own horn, but we're also steeped, at least in the old school Star Wars lore, that stuff was kind of easy.
Yeah, but
the
see,
improv,
I even went further. So I just went to the old Republic, right?
That's right, yeah.
Because I was like, fuck, I don't want to
But
deal
also
with
gives you more
Darth
freedom, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I want freedom. I want things to be cool. I want people to if you want to play a Jedi, you can be a Jedi. You know, no restrictions, no like you have to keep it hidden or you're a failed
Keep a low
Jedi.
profile.
You know, all that stuff. No, I just have fun with it. And you know, I created a giant evil group of evil Jedis who were trying to collect a suit of armor, which was forged even thousands of years before that. That would give them the ultimate power to the Force.
Cool.
And then, you know, everyone else had to go and stop this shit, of course. That's like you do. And fun game. Everyone had fun playing it. And it was just one of those, I was able to make Star Wars kind of my own.
Sure.
You know, it took like the beats from there. And that stuff I originally wrote out. But later Star Wars games, like you played in one, I didn't think of anything. I literally just...
Yeah, that was a complete pickup game. We were just hanging out, and everyone was like, I want to play Star Wars, and you're like, okay.
Okay. And I didn't, and I sat there and I was like, okay. Because James was like, roll up a character. The other guys already have their characters from when I played. And I just sat there and I was like, all right, what's the basis? They need to do something. Okay, you gotta go stop. You know, it really is like...
Where's your point B?
Yeah, so it's like, you gotta stop these... soldier dudes, go. And then
Goddamn soldier dudes.
you know, and then all of a sudden,
Goddamn soldier
so then
dudes.
you're getting your missions from a grizzly old Jedi that I just make up. They're like, what's this? It's like Master Tenenbaum, you know, and it was like, where you okay, you travel down to the planet. It's kind of creepy and stuff like that, but you're gonna go see your informant. Where's the informant at? He's at the Rancor's taint. And then it just,
Oh, Jesus.
you know, and it just, then you're gonna stop this.
It's definitely making Star Wars your own.
No.
Well, what?
That's gross.
You wouldn't go to the Rancor's taint?
No, I would not.
If it's just a bar.
I'd be curious about the ambiance. Is it like
I'd be
Rainforest
curious as to
Cafe?
how
Or
we got that name.
Kind of,
You
but
know
it's
what
Are
I
like,
mean?
they
Like
recreating a ring?
With like the walls all made to look like stone?
no,
Or
it's pretty
Rancor
much
skin.
the undercarriage. You're
Oh.
dining in the undercarriage of a Rancor.
So nasty.
So it could look like the Rainforest Cafe, but it's not really true.
Well, you know, they have like the cavern walls.
The Rancorist Cafe. How about that?
No, that's too nice. Well, anyway, the whole point was I just let it happen. I just was building it off of, I know this is Star Wars. I know there's these very few things, but I'm not thinking about anything.
Yeah, so subbing it in as like your own setting, that Star Wars knowledge lore or the
Help.
lore knowledge helps. But at the end of the day, it's kind of just having a basic idea of like, okay, I know what the races are. I know like, okay, Rhodians are there and they're kind of huntery bounty hunter guys, and just having that stuff in the back of your head as a kind of a toolbox so that you can just slide things in as they fit is important. So, you know, just giving your setting some thought, hitting those bullet points like I was talking about, and answering those questions with your players or not. I think you'd be surprised, especially like new DMs, how few of those you need to get by.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I was like, okay, I want to make my game in LA. I've been to LA, so I know some stuff about it. How would it be different in this setting? Okay, cool. And then I've got general stuff like we got a good laugh out of the student loans thing. So
Yes,
maybe
great.
like the plot, maybe we'll center around that. You know, maybe it'll be some sort of bank fraud sort of a thing where it's like a money making scheme, because this is a kind of a realistic. I don't want to say gritty because there's magic and stuff, but money's still a thing that people are going to strive for and power. So just work those common and also working real world themes into it. Take a page out of George R. R. Martin's book, steal some shit from history, like plots, and and before you know it, you're like, okay, cool, I've got everything I need to run this campaign, because I don't need to know what's going on in central China during this game, because we're playing in LA.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, if we want to go to central China, then like I might have some work to do.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, you don't need many of those bullet points to give it that vibrant, living feel, and the rest of it you're going to fill up on the way. So.
Yep.
That's one of the things I do when I do some prep, obviously. I get some ideas. I get a general sense of the world. But when I'm running the game, I'm running it very much like a television show,
Yeah.
And a television show, there's always like at the end of the episode, the aliens walk in and they look totally different. You're like, what was that? And then credits roll and you're like, that was amazing. Like, I had no idea those things existed, but the characters in there, they knew. They're like, oh, it's those guys,
Mm-hmm.
But the viewer didn't know, and that's what keeps it exciting. So I think I personally enjoy kind of throwing those curveballs in and just kind of taking small chunks at a time as they're playing and writing that out and introducing stuff as they go. I want to touch on the stealing thing. You mentioned stealing earlier.
Yeah, you should steal at all times from multiple sources.
Yes. So
That's my view on stealing as far as the DM goes.
it's going to be a very silly thing, but there was a video game I really liked called Breakdown. Did you ever play this? The whole thing was a first-person thing, from the first frame to the final frame. You're in
Sounds
first-person
familiar,
view.
I thought you were going to say Fracture.
Right.
Fracture. I was thinking, what's that GTA Cyberpunk one where you're a cop?
Oh,
Crackdown. That's what I was thinking
yeah.
initially, which was great fun.
Yeah,
God,
oh,
that,
yeah.
that first one was such a fucking good game, where you could like rage out your level up your strength and
Yeah.
like go like do
Throw
a
a
jump
car.
kick
Hold
on
out.
a Mack truck and launch it off a bridge.
Well, I suppose there were kind of two games. One, I stole an aesthetic thing from Breakdown. You are like this cybernetic soldier guy, and you could use nanites to create things, and they would always take the form of hexagons for whatever reason. Hexagons,
Because
like a big thing.
hexagons are futuristic.
Yeah, and I was like, hexagons will be everywhere in my world. Like hexagons are going to be a thing.
futuristic.
So like every time, like and then a bunch of hexagons, like because I ran Tiffany on like a short little thing just to get her the feel of Savage Worlds, and yeah, she cast Entangle. I'm like, all these hexagons around the guy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell me that like energy fields made up of like hexes don't look cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think doesn't even like Overwatch or something. I mean, it's
I wouldn't be
common.
surprised. Yeah. Well, it's.
Anyways,
I always
it's-
thought of Breakdown,
it's a
but
cool-
it's
yeah,
come
it's
up a
cool-
million times.
Cool aesthetic.
Him
Anyway.
before. But there's also another video game. I'm probably getting the name wrong. Horizon Zero Dawn or something like that. Have you seen it? Where it's like 1,000 years post-apocalyptic. Robots took over the world.
Oh,
and
it's that
there's-
new one.
Yeah,
I've seen the
yeah.
trailer
And
for
you
that.
play this. It's kind of like it looks like
no,
an Arkham Asylum.
it's Horizon is the first.
Yeah, Horizon.
Yeah. The one
Zero
where
Dawn, I think, was the title. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. You can
Yeah,
correct
that
me.
looks. That's actually. That
Yeah, where
looks
you're like-
super reminiscent of Genesis Survivor Gaia.
Okay.
It's the same sort of
That
shit.
was some
where
of
you-
the
Yeah, where
inspiration
you're
for my world was that you know you're humans and you're using this tech, but there would be like and that breaks into this other thing. So they have in this dinosaurs, right? This big T-Rex thing. It's all made of metal. It's all robotic.
Yeah,
it shoots
that's
missiles and all
how
that.
Genesis Survivor Gaia was like. All their mounts were these like weird ostrich things, but they were like robots.
That's so funny because I don't think I've seen that yet. I put that in.
Yeah, it's like
my-
robots, but they're wildlife because they've
Yeah.
they've been around for like 100 years, just kind of getting older and like malfunctioning and stuff. So you've got these like berserker ones and the,
Shit. Yeah, do you keep saying it now? It keeps bringing that more and more now.
what the anime?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, isn't there like a golden ostrich? I swear, like one
That
is
sounds
like
like Golden
gold.
Axe.
No, like,
Like
one's
a-
like golden, like colored or something like that.
One of the characters in the second episode has like a pink one. They all have their own.
I'm trying
But
to
then there's also like knights and shit, like these old war droids that are like kind of paladins, and it's fucking cool. But anyways,
I'll have to
I'm
check
just
that
kind of you would dig it.
Yeah.
Trust me. Like, I think it's even probably on YouTube.
I mean,
It's-
hanging out with you, I've probably seen it. I've just not.
I
remembering
almost
it.
guarantee you've seen
Yeah.
it. There's also a very touching, sad scene where he's like leaving home and his little cute little pet rabbit's trying to follow him. and he
Robot
has to be
rabbit?
like, no, it's a real rabbit. And then it's like he has to tell it to like turn around and go home because it's too dangerous. And it's all like it's a super heart wrenching, sad scene.
Well,
Thanks.
in
Now I'm
this
gonna have to
world I'm
watch it when I
developing-
put it into the.
in this world I'm working on, the idea is when the ancient gods were defeated by the creatures of this world, they kind of took with them all the mythical creatures. So dragons and trolls and manticores all disappeared. And, you know, they just vanished with the gods because they were kind of created by this ancient magic. So then this tech comes in, and then these creatures started coming back, but they were different. They were all made of metal and circuitry and this and that. Now, there's no guns in this world. So in that Horizon Zero Dawn thing, they've got like missile launchers and crap. That's not what I'm interested in. But like
Would
you'll
they have
see,
run
like
out of missiles by then?
you would
Nah.
Like
think.
they're all covered in grass and shit.
No, if a giant robot animal can come from somewhere,
Yeah.
they can make
They
more
can make
missiles.
missiles.
Yeah.
Oh, they make
But-
their own ammo now.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they can make
okay.
all the robots. But yeah, so basically, you know, there could be, you know, a very natural wolf pack running around, you know, and they're not cybernetic at all. They're just doing their thing. There's birds and insects and all that. But then kind of the mythical creatures will be these horrible mechanical constructs, made
Like
for this
versions
tech.
of themselves.
Yeah. It's almost like the tech didn't know what to do after everything had been kind of wiped out, and it just started like, well, there were these things, so it started creating these things. It seems like it was influenced by these ancient gods, and so yeah. And then you'll get things like Gorgons, which would be like a person that was really into tech, and then now they're all cybernetic, and they've got like cybernetic snakes coming out of their
gross!
head
Like
and stuff
Superman, and it's like Superman 3.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Exactly.
That was so scary when I was a kid.
So yes, I'm definitely stealing some
was.
stuff from those things.
Dude, I was tiny when I saw it in the theater.
It's not making your case any better, dude.
Dude, I was
That part was
super
scary.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was freaky deaky.
Okay.
Did you see it in the theater? No.
I probably did.
No, you
No, I probably don't.
He's so young.
No, the
Yeah.
thing.
Probably wasn't even born yet.
You're
Oh,
so
for
young you were oblivious to how scary it was. 'Cause
Yeah.
That shit was scary.
Yeah, because I was a punk.
You just insulted yourself.
No, I said I wasn't.
Oh, you.
I thought you said you were.
No, I
that's what it
was for
sounded
other things, like Big Trouble in China, the underwater scene. Oh, ugh.
With the skeletons?
Yeah.
Like
Ugh.
skeletons?
Yeah. Ugh, ugh. Anyway,
So,
Moving on.
do you guys have any like specific things you like to do to make your setting stand out or be a compelling setting specifically? Do you have like a
Well, I
technique?
mean, I feel like if I don't have that, then I just use an existing realm.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
fair.
Like,
Yeah.
if I just feel like playing D&D, I'm just probably going to run it in Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance or something like that, whatever we feel like at the time. Because that's another thing about world building. Like, yeah, you can do it, but if you're just reinventing the wheel, sure, you can do it if you just want something your own. I mean, you could even just take Forgotten Realms or Mystara or whatever it is and just change the names and move the map around, or just take things as you want and just make it your own realm if you want to do it. But I mean, again, you don't need, if you're just running like a generic D&D game, like even more so, you don't really need that much to start with. You could just create a village where your characters start, or a castle where they start, and you have the narrative for the adventure you want to run, and that informs what exists around that. But I mean, your characters are like medieval-ish type people. They don't, they're not like on Google Maps researching the rest of the world. They don't know shit, so you don't need to tell them shit. So if you're just, you could almost create a world as just,
the village and the little valley it's in.
yeah,
That's
like,
all you know.
Yeah, what do they need to create characters? Okay, well, you need to know what gods are worshipped, so maybe you either take an existing pantheon or make up your own gods, or maybe you just take the Norse gods or the Greek gods and change the names and shit. Like, it's again, all that stuff's been done. You don't need to retread all that ground if you don't want to. But I mean, yeah, just what you need to get the characters created, and then you're done. That's my take on it.
I don't know. When I think of world building, I just think of it, and they keep people interested. I typically think of who will be playing in it.
Yeah, that's huge.
So usually I'm like, okay, well, I know these two will dig what I'm putting down because, similar mind. And then after, there are other people, it might be a little bit more of a sell. So you have to kind of like, hey, come in, play, test drive in it.
And that's where giving people that stake in the world comes in. Like,
Exactly.
okay, if I know like it's going to take a little bit of work to get Brett to like this setting, but I know Brett is into Vikings or into like cool Russian warrior type dude. Maybe I'll be like, hey Brett, how do you think we should do the Russians, or whatever it is,
Drop keywords. Well,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
admittedly, I kind of did the same thing too. I was talking to Tiffany and wanted to try creating a sci-fi world that she can get in. She's never been much of a fan of sci-fi, and her big thing is she's not really into the guns and the range combat and lasers and all that. And I was like, well, I could totally do something like that without guns, and let's see if we can do it. And she's been digging it, so
Well, yeah, I mean,
I understand that.
all you're taking is it's an extension of, okay, I'm trying to create something cool, and I want my friends or the people who are going to be playing to like it. Therefore, stands to reason I should make something that's tailor-made for them.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and for yourself. I mean, I wouldn't make
for
something
sure,
if
you're
I
not-
didn't want to make it.
yeah, I mean, obviously it's gonna be your world, but the idea is, and I think this should be true of any setting that you make. I mean, I guess you could be the guy who spends the decade of his life creating this ultimate fantasy world that it's just your vision. But I don't think that's as fun as saying, okay, if I'm going to make this fantasy world, it should be the one that's custom made for my group to enjoy. Like, what's the shit we like? We know we like Big Trouble in Little China. We know we like all those old school 80s cartoons like, Silverhawks and He-Man and Thundercats and all that crazy shit. So there's going to be a little bit of that weirdness, we're in space on some crazy planet with weird skies and crazy plants, whatever it is. And, you just start mixing in those elements that we like. And any DM can do that, unless it's obviously if you're playing with a bunch of strangers, a little tougher time, I guess.
Yeah.
But, assuming you're not playing with strangers and you're actually playing with people and
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's kind of like you have a story that you want to tell, you have a world that you want to tell, or show off. So it's kind of like, all right, let's put it out there. And again, putting Easter eggs, I love doing that stuff with you guys and things like that. Things that you'll appreciate, things that I know you'll like, because I'm playing to my audience as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a world that I wanted to build and took the time to build it. Same time, I want you guys to have fun in it. So, inviting people to kind of come up with or build it out themselves with their own ideas is always a great thing. Especially the way how you guys will do it. Be like, oh man, it'd be really cool if, I could have this Cossack, right? But he rode like a mechanical horse instead, this kind of but there's a whole tribe of them. So then it's not just like this, specific. And then you just build off from that.
Yeah.
Be great ways to kind of do it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We should probably wrap up. We're getting a little long on time as far as world building. But I did have one story that pertains to stealing things. I've brought it up in a couple of games, but I haven't been able to talk about it since the episodes weren't released because we hadn't worked our way through it. But now that episode, I want to say 4 and 5 are out. The ones with Mikhail Winterclaw.
Oh, that was 6 and 7.
6 and 7. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
It was 4 and 5.
You're right.
But when we talk about stealing from things you like, this is one I stole so wholeheartedly that I was afraid that people in the group would see the plot coming, but they didn't, which I was glad about. But it was from an old Robotech episode where, I don't know, I think it was called, I want to say Battle Cry. I forget what
you sent me the link.
But it's basically the episode with Colonel Wolf in the 3rd season of Robotech where it's basically this thing where they get to this town and everyone's partying and it's like, oh, it's totally safe around here. And they're like, dude, aren't you guys worried about the aliens that are taking over Earth and killing everybody? They're like, oh no, this dude Colonel Wolf's here. He's like a war hero and he's totally the man and he keeps us safe. And what it turns out, long story short, it turns out he's been leading soldiers into ambushes and basically trading their lives for the safety of the town. And so basically I just stole that and said, okay, instead of the, aliens, it's a green dragon because there was already one in the, in the module. And she's and it works perfectly because they love corrupting good people. So she's played on whatever weaknesses he has and manipulated him into doing her bidding and lured the players into this ambush. And now they're in the same situation that the characters in Robotech were. So it was like this, stolen wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
But
so go watch that episode.
yeah, it's good times. It's fun.
But you adapted it and made it work within a Dungeons and Dragons environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll link that episode if anyone wants to watch it.
Totally.
If you haven't watched Robotech, good lord.
Shame on you.
Yeah, just watch it. It's awesome.
And I would say, I fully endorse that type of rewriting.
Thievery.
Thievery.
Pilfering.
I mean, you look at, I always like pointing out the movie Seven Samurai, right? Akira Kurosawa. I love that
Excellent movie.
And it's been remade so many times just with different flavorings.
Mm-hmm.
So an obvious one is Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
Which I think I saw another remake of it coming out.
Yep.
That looked
with,
interesting. We'll see how
with
that goes.
Denzel Washington, I think.
Yeah.
Whoa, that'll be interesting.
And who's that? Is that Chris Pine that was in that?
I think so. He's Captain Kirk.
The new,
Oh, shit.
Kirk. But he's like total gunslinger guy. It looks
Dude, that
pretty
sounds
cool.
good.
Yeah. It looks like just action popcorn movie.
Sure.
And fun, but that idea has been remade so many times, and I like to point out that the movie The Bug's Life, I mean that's also a remake of Seven Samurai. I mean, there's
Really?
technically 8, but 2 of them are the pill bugs, which is really just one character.
Yeah.
But they're effectively masterless circus performance, right? They don't have jobs, and then the guy's like, "Oh, these locusts are stealing all of our food, and we need help." And then they come and they teach the village how to defend themselves. Which is the same as Seven Samurai.
That reminded me of, sorry, just sort of a side thing, but there was an MMO where you could make a character that was, one of the races was like 3 little like furry like tribble type like gerbil dudes. And like it was just like treated as one character, but it was like
3
all the
little
combat
dudes.
animations were like the 3 of these dudes like teaming up to do shit, and just reminded me of that. Moving on.
So I would say, I suppose we haven't really dispensed much advice during this episode, which is fine. We've just been
Well, just going
shooting
over
the
the
breeze.
concepts.
Yeah.
Hopefully, people can pick up a thing or two from it.
So one of my pieces of advice would be go ahead. Well, obviously you already say go ahead and steal stuff, and I say go ahead for your world. Find a world that you really like and reskin it. Find a plot device that you really like and reskin it. It's been done 1,000 times before, and it'll be done 1,000 times again, and that's fine. That's fine. Put your own take on whatever the story is, and people will love it. I mean, people have loved those stories for thousands of years, so who's to say they won't enjoy them more?
Yeah, I think my closing statement would be, just similar to that. Just look at what you need to run your game and don't do more than that, because it's easy to get carried away with world building.
Yeah.
But you know what you roughly want to get done in your first few sessions, so you can kind of extrapolate from that how much background info you need, and then just let the gameplay and let that stuff fill itself out naturally, because it'll happen faster than you think.
Yeah.
And you said it pretty early on when we were talking about the who, what, where, when, and why and how.
Yeah.
And write down a bunch of concepts too.
Yeah.
So that if someone's like, "What's in that village?" you can be like, "Oh, I'll put the
And that's where the bullet points come in, right? Like, okay, so maybe you've written down a bunch of bullet points, like, okay, like you've had those tier minch in Noctovia, which are like beastmen, kind of from Warhammer a little bit. If you hadn't decided where they fit into the world, but you knew you wanted them, when someone asks, "Oh, what's in this town over there?" you just pick one of your bullet points that you haven't really fleshed out very much. You go, "Oh yeah, that's where Tyrminch are from. It's this crazy town where they got corrupted by praying to the evil gods, and now they're these crazy beastmen, and they come out and fuck people up."
I'm gonna write that down. See,
But you know what I mean? It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
so that's sort of a thing. Like that's where, because if our viewers are anything like us, or any other D&D players, I feel like you're kind of spacing out and daydreaming about D&D when you're doing downtime or when you're doing like menial tasks at work or whatever it is, and you might think of these bullet points. So just the fact of having a smartphone where you can just jot things down, even if it's in like your notes app or whatever it is, you don't have to use like OneNote or something like that, but having that handy so you can just jot notes down is it's a huge tool, because once you've got enough of those bullet points, I mean, that's almost enough to just start playing. If you really are, if you're playing fast and loose. Yeah. But it helps you, even if you don't even know, like with like the student loans thing, right? Like, just type, mages, student loans, college, whatever, mages, college. You don't know where that's going to fit in, but it fits in your world. So then when the players get contacted by some, NPC, or where they take a left when you wanted them to take a right, you've got something that you can, you're kind of falling off the cliff, and you have those rungs that you can grab onto and start climbing. So, that's I think as far as closing statements, that's all I got.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, I got nothing else.
Okay.
At least for tonight. Got anything else, John?
Real side note. It's already going to air by the time this goes out. But you should check out our alter egos on Jay Leno's Garage.
That's right.
Yeah, so the Orc-Chop Express is also involved in this event called Wasteland Weekend, where we go as the Rust Devil Bounty Hunters. And
Yeah.
Had to remember how to do it.
This is the Wasteland Salute. I'm not
Yeah.
saying this to my viewers.
so if you want to check it out, if you're into Mad Max or whatever, check out wastelandweekend.com.
Yeah.
And the Rust Devil's name we came up with before the Fallout DLC.
Yes.
I'll have you know.
Duly noted.
But yeah, and so we made a post-apocalyptic limo because it's this big post-apocalyptic themed party in the desert, and people do up vehicles and costumes, and it's super awesome. And so we did this limo in kind of like a gunboat, flying fortress type of a vibe. And every now and then it'll appear on TV. You'll see it in Mercedes commercials and random stuff like that.
Just saying.
Yeah, just some cool
Just,
stuff.
you know.
Just this other awesome thing we do. And so most recently we were on. We filmed an episode of Jay Leno's Garage, and that should be released by the time this goes live.
Yep.
So we'll have the link for that if anyone is interested.
That's pretty neat. You'll get to see us in our costumes. Well, in theory, if we made the cut.
If we made the
don't
cut.
even know.
Yeah, we haven't seen it
We
yet.
might
We
have
haven't
cut
seen
out an
it.
episode.
I know
I
that.
still corrected him on the year of the car. I shouldn't have done that. They're going to cut that.
No, but they're probably going to get him patting Michael's crotch. So.
Yeah, he was really impressed by that cod piece.
Well, I would be too.
I think everyone's impressed by the
There's
costume.
spikes on it.
It's pretty amazing.
It's like he really doesn't want anyone going anywhere near there.
Don't touch his junk.
We're all bounty hunters, and I did the bounty hunter head nod, kind of the Lando Calrissian,
Yeah, the Boba Fett.
and so I just stood there. He pointed over at me, and he's like, "Oh, who did the nose art?" And you're like, "Oh, he did." And then he just looks at me. I go like that. He's all, "Oh," he's not gonna run up and say, "Hi, how's it going? My name is Brandon."
But yeah, so that should have aired by the time you watch this. So yeah, give it a check.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And-
I'll add the trailer down below and stuff.
yeah.
And also, don't be afraid to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah, please do.
Orc-Chop
If you're
Express.
enjoying the videos, please hit subscribe on YouTube. It helps us out a lot. And feel free to follow us on Twitter. And if you want to support the channel, check out our website. We'll have links below for T-shirts. We've actually added the Orc-Chop Express Chang Sing salute, and we'll be actually adding some more shirts in the near future. We've
Yep.
got some new designs coming out that are going to be pretty awesome. So
Yeah, so orcchopexpress.com. Follow us at Orc-Chop Express on Twitter. Leave comments, do all that stuff.